On Thai PBS World tonight, the Prime Minister may face a censure debate lasting just one day as the opposition focuses its attack solely on the country's leader. While the government aims to boost the economy, a Thai research center warns that growth could lag behind neighboring nations. And most Thais linked to scam centers and deported from Cambodia will face serious charges. You're watching Thai PBS World Tonight. I'm Frank Kanshi.
And I'm Nabunang. And we'll begin the program tonight with the latest in Thai politics. The censure debate against the Prime Minister is tentatively scheduled for the end of March, but there's no exact date given at this time. And normally censure debates against the ruling government would normally take more than just one day. So normally it would be like 2 or 3 days. But with the opposition attacking only at the country's leader, the government chief whip suggests that one day should only be enough. So government chief whip Wisuthainarun said that if the opposition only wants to target Prime Minister Paetongtarn in the forthcoming censure debate, one day should only be enough. He also said, though, that House Speaker Wan Muhammad Nomatar has not yet set the date for the debate, adding that when a date is decided upon, the Speaker will meet the government and opposition whips to agree on the number of days needed and to allocate time for both sides to speak. He dismissed the opposition's suggestion of 5 days as a daydream, which would only be possible when the current opposition is in government. Wisut also said that he is confident that the Prime Minister will be able to handle the censure debate, adding that it is not possible for the Prime Minister to know every issue in detail, so it may be necessary to refer some of the questions raised by opposition MPs to the ministers concerned for a fuller explanation. The government chief whip also explained that it is not necessary for the Prime Minister to be physically present in the chamber throughout the debate, adding that she can still follow it from elsewhere. Regarding former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, Wisut said that as an outsider, he is not allowed to be inside the chamber, and MPs are not allowed to draw him into subjects raised during the debate. And to give you a glimpse of how the opposition would grill the Prime Minister based on the censure motion by opposition parties, among the key accusations against the Prime Minister include lacking leadership qualities, dishonesty, mismanagement, cronyism, and allowing her father, Thaksin Shinawatra, to have influence over her. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Paetongtarn left for Berlin to attend the ITB Berlin 2025 event, which is the world's largest travel trade show. And during the 6-day visit in Germany, Paetongtarn will meet with Team Thailand in the European Union and the Thai ambassador to Germany to follow up on policy implementations. And we also have a little bit of a funny story about Prime Minister Paetongtarn as well, because she said in response to reports about the censure debate against her that she is ready to defend herself during the debate, especially on her leadership abilities. And one catchphrase was that she calls herself a Prime Minister of Generation Y. And Generation Y suddenly became a buzzword here in Thailand because you know how the parliament comprises of older politicians. Most of them are either from the baby boomers generation or the Gen X generation, and the newer politicians would be of the Generation Y group. So we would be really excited to know how she would actually respond to the allegations during the censure debate.
Two key questions here. Actually, of course, no matter in democratic economies, in the UK, in Taiwan, normally the censure debate takes around 2 to 3 days. But this time, maybe opposition only has 1 day only. So is that enough really for the opposition to grill, of course, to ask more details from Paetongtarn's administration? And second one, of course, you talk about Gen Y, Prime Minister Gen Y, wow, there. But of course, you have to see the group, advisory group there of Paetongtarn because I think most of them are over Gen Y generation.
Of course, actually above the Gen X generation. Most of them are either in the baby boomers generation or the Gen X generation, because if you look at the whole list of the people in the cabinet, most of them are in their 50s, in their 60s, or even 70s, with only a very small group of people in their 30s and 40s. So this cabinet is purely dominated by the older generation, those over 60 years old. And the political science expert Olan Tinbantio even commented during an interview with Thai PBS that the Prime Minister should actually accept a proper censure debate that is more than just one day, so that all of the people involved can actually lay out the facts, and then the Prime Minister can actually explain each of them. And then he also suggested that the Prime Minister must stick to her ethics and democratic values and should not only rely on the baby boomers for advice when it comes to her leadership. And the censure debate itself, with politicians by the Gen X and Gen Y, would actually be more effective if they actually lay out all the facts and then actually deliberate on that, not just only about the accusations.
So going back to the question, one day, is that enough? I don't think so, because of course there are so many angles that this government should be asked for in the parliament. So we will see if by the end of March, how will the censure debate go for one day or 2 days more. We have to move to another topic here. It's about economy, because of course Paetongtarn and her administration trying to push Thailand's GDP growth to 3%, but a Thai research center say that it's not possible because Thailand's growth would lag behind other ASEAN nations. The Grongstri Research Center has projected that the global economy will expand by 3.3% in 2025. Meanwhile, ASEAN economies are expected to continue their recovery with regional growth forecast at 4.6%. Head of Economic Research of the Research Center has revised the forecast for Thailand's economic growth, now predicting an expansion of 2.7%, up slightly from 2.5% in 2024. But actually, Paetongtarn wants to push the economy to 3%. There's still some range here. This comes despite ongoing global volatility, rising government and private sector debt, economic and trade disputes, geopolitical tensions, and uncertainty in the United States. High interest rates in key economies remain a concern, while escalating economic tensions between the United States and China, marked by increasing trade barriers, could heighten the risk of a new trade war. In Thailand, economic growth is expected to be driven by short-term positive factors, despite deeper structural issues and shifting global trends. The tourism sector, of course, we've seen some revitalize here, is set to play a key role, with the number of international arrivals projected to reach 38 million in 2025. The head of the research center also say that several supporting factors, including increased travel demand, a rise in flight capacity, and expanded flight routes. Visa-free travel also help, and higher government spending are also expected to provide a boost. Private investment is forecast to recover, expanding by 2.6% following a contraction of 1.6% in 2024. Meanwhile, exports are really helpful right now to grow by 2.7% expectedly. So of course, we've seen this geopolitical tension between U.S. and China really impact a lot of economic recovery, not just in U.S. and China, also in Thailand too. And we have to see the growth, economic growth from Thailand to 3%. That might be quite difficult, according to Grongstri Research Center here. And of course, I also interviewed the Japanese Chamber of Commerce president, and he said that maybe Thailand's government has to put more investment in education development, human capital development. This is the key.
And it's going to be a huge challenge for the Thai government when it comes to economic recovery. And now let's turn to the 119 Thai nationals who were deported from Cambodia. And according to latest developments, 93 of them will be facing serious charges. So 93 Thais deported from Cambodia since last Saturday are set to appear before the criminal court for approval of further detention pending questioning. The Commissioner of Cybercrime Investigation Bureau, or the CCIB, said today that Thai nationals who went to work in Cambodia's scam centers in Poi Bet willingly could face charges of being members of a transnational criminal network, defrauding the public, criminal association, and violations of the computer crime law. Of the 93 Thais in legal trouble are 48 women currently being detained at the CCIB head office, while the men are being held at Pakret and Tung Song Hong police stations. Of the other 19 returnees, 15 have been cleared of any connection with the scam centers in Poi Bet, but were involved with online gambling activities. The other 4 are under 18 years old, but 2 of them are linked to a transnational criminal network. There are 7 others who are named on arrest warrants, and they are being held in local police stations. The CCIB chief said that from the statements given to the police, most of them went to Cambodia to work as scammers voluntarily due to promises of attractive rewards, adding that some of them crossed the border more than 10 times. Many of them posed as officials from the Comptroller General's department when attempting to dupe Thai pensioners out of their pensions, or as electricity authority officials telling their potential victims that they will receive a refund of their electricity meter deposits. But whether they went there voluntarily or they were lured to work there, they are likely to face serious charges because of the damages that have caused to many of the victims.
And of course, this is the Thailand's very strong policy to crack down scam call centers, gangs there, of course. This time we already reported that 93 Thais right now in legal trouble because they might face very serious charges there because it links transnational crime.
Exactly, and the transnational crime network, it seems to be growing, and even though the crackdowns are already there in Myanmar and in Cambodia, but like we have reported before, is that these networks can still move around. So many of the experts say that it's not just cutting the electricity and the fuel supplies to these border towns only, but to arrest those who are actually the mastermind behind these transnational crime networks are the most important.
And this government, of course, in Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, I think this is the collaboration within various countries here to really crack down because it's a very fluid movement here at border. Let's move on to another alarming story where a group of hospital staff were accused of stealing expensive imported medication for sale. The allegation of drug theft came to light after People's Party MP for Bangkok revealed that he had received information from a former doctor at one hospital claiming that the practice had been going on for years. The hospital and the War Veterans Organization, or WVO, launched an investigation and confirmed the claim. There were 6 teams in the network comprising both current and retired nurses and other medical personnel, one of whom has already confessed. According to the hospital in question, those suspected of involvement have been suspended pending further investigation. Right now, the Comptroller General's Department will join the WVO and the Veteran General Hospital in filing a lawsuit against about 20 former and serving officials of the hospital, demanding compensation for theft over a decade of expensive imported drugs that treat non-communicable disease. The Director General of the Comptroller General's Department said that their litigation office has been instructed to prepare a lawsuit seeking compensation once disciplinary action has been taken against the officials involved. She admitted that there is loophole in the entitlement of active and retired government officials and their families to free medical treatment from the state because they extend to hospitals other than the ones where they usually receive medical treatment. In many cases, doctors who write the prescriptions do not actually treat the patients. She added, though, that the Comptroller General Department will not change the rules pertaining to the entitlements to close the loophole, because this may adversely affect many retired and serving officials and their families who are not involved in abuse of the entitlements. She also disclosed that the cost of free medical services for government officials and their families are estimated at over 100 billion baht per annum. And they generally increase every year because most of patients are retired. Meanwhile, the former Deputy Director General of the Medical Science Department disclosed that doctors have a tendency to prescribe a large quantity of the NCD drugs such as statins and drugs that treat diabetes on each visit by the patient to reduce the frequency of their trips to hospitals. He pointed out that the lack of data sharing between state hospitals regarding the dispensing of drugs is another loophole, making it impossible to track the records of patients accepting drugs prescribed by doctors. Of late, the Comptroller General's Department has tightened controls on the dispensing of expensive drugs by demanding explanations from the executive of hospital which prescribe unusual large quantities of NCD medication. So of course we've seen these cases are very, very critical for Thailand's medical and hospital system here, because of course I understand that actually in Thailand's public servants, they have the right to get free medications or free treatment in hospital system. But this is a very controversial case here.
And even though they are allowed to get access to these benefits, but there are main loopholes that allow these things to happen. One of them is that how doctors have the tendency to prescribe a large quantity of drugs, and also the lack of data sharing between the state hospitals. So this is why these loopholes still persist, and this has actually allowed some of them to sell these illegally as well.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll end the program with this story. Last year, you might recall an alien fish species that wreaked havoc in agricultural areas across Thailand, which has affected many of the farmers and also the ecosystem itself. The latest developments is that the South Bangkok Civil Court has approved a class action lawsuit filed by individuals who have been affected by the spread of Blackchin tilapia in Samut Songkhram province. The plaintiffs are suing Jalern Pokapan Foods or CPF for damages exceeding 2.4 billion baht. Residents affected by the Blackchin tilapia outbreak in Samut Songkhram and Phetchaburi provinces expressed their satisfaction after the court approved their request for a class action lawsuit. The case was filed by a group of farmers who accused CPF of conducting business practices that have harmed the ecosystem and their livelihoods. Various agencies has previously conducted investigations, and the case involves legal and factual issues common to a large group of affected individuals. The class action approach will help ease the burden on the court system and reduce litigation costs for plaintiffs who may not have sufficient financial resources to file individual lawsuits. Therefore, the court has granted approval for the case to proceed as a class action lawsuit. And this lawsuit actually involves aquaculture farmers and local fishermen in Samut Songkhram province, and they're seeking compensation for lost income over the past 7 years, with total damages claimed amounting to about 2.4 billion baht. So with all of this affecting the farmers and the livelihoods, we can see why they are actually filing a class action lawsuit, because it is really not just affecting the farmers, but also the entire ecosystem. Imagine all the crops and other aquaculture species that have been affected by this as well.
And of course, 2.5 billion baht is a quite high cost for farmers or those people really on the ground. And of course, this is a very, we would call it a very, very contractual role in lawsuit. I would say that because of course CP is a very big conglomerate here, and of course those farmers on the ground, they are trying to get their rights back in their angle, but of course this is a very long-term lawsuit here because we have to see if after this. The court already accepted the lawsuit, but right now we still have to see how both sides, the defendant and plaintiff, can really win that.
Exactly. All right, and that wraps up tonight's edition of Thai PBS World Tonight. Join us every Monday and Tuesday at 6 p.m. on Thai PBS World's Facebook and YouTube Live. And don't forget to follow us on social media and our website, thaipbsworld.com, for all the latest stories and analyses about Thailand. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ